Hey guys, this is Dunk again. Today I show you a few builds that are unused but actually very good. And as you can see here, this is a speed farming setup for T10 and low grade rifts. That's the Natalia setup. It works pretty well, it's pretty fun, and you can click on the link to see the guide for that. The next one in that list is Unhallowed essence setup with the Bola as the main damage dealer. And this works with Boritsa and dual wielding, and it can be used in Torment 10 and low to medium grade rifts, and it's actually pretty fun and also quite good in those levels, but could be better if bugs could be removed. The last one is a Frost Arrow spec with Unhallowed essence, and this one is actually very strong. You can use that for Torment 10 if you want to, but multi-shot would be better there. But you can use it in medium to high ranked greater rifts, and even in low ones if you like, and it is extremely powerful there. For me and my gear, I do have the same power in that setup as with the multi-shot setup, so if you prefer that one here, you can actually use that. If you don't want to use any Fan of Knives build, this one is an alternative to multi-shot and it has some advantages. Check it in the guide, and I hope you enjoy that stuff. So this is the first of my guides for builds that work but nobody actually uses, and this is the Natalia setup for speed farming. And you can really say it's speed farming, it's not bad, and the gameplay and also the gear, apart from the set items of course, is very comparable to that of the Legacy of Nightmares Strafe Fan of Knives setup that I recently published. It is, however, it's not as good as that one, but still, as you can see here in Torment 10 with my gear, and there's no augments on that stuff, on that Natalia gear, and most of the items aren't even enchanted, it's still working pretty decently. And the big difference to the Legacy of Nightmares is that you lose some buffs, but you gain others. Like the Legacy of Nightmares, you have just those two rings. Here you can use Focus and Restraint, and you can also see, right now you can't see it, but there's also the Ingeom active after I killed the elite. And this is really cool because it basically neglects the cooldown of Reign of Vengeance if you combine that with the Natalia spec bonus. And yeah, it's something different. It's not bad, it's really not bad, but it's just not as good as other setups. So if you want to know more about that, let's just show it to you. And yeah, let us see, where do we have it? Right here. That's the character I have the gear on right now, and as you can see, of course, it's the Natalia gear. I have the weapon here. Of course, that's a pretty decently rolled one. It's not perfect, but very good. I have the boots, also perfect rolls, and strafe damage doesn't really matter here. You can use movement speed if you do not have enough paragons to get the movement speed capped, or if you want to have some more dexterity from your paragon points, but yeah, that doesn't really matter because strafe, just as in the Legacy of Nightmare setup, it's just a carrier for the build, like here. The Natalia leggings, of course, standard roll, dex with all rest, that's basically what you want everywhere. Let's continue here with the gloves. Crit cooldown, dexterity. You can think about using like attack speed or whatever, but this is basically the best combination that you can have because it's strafe, and the Reign of Vengeance damage is not really depending on your attack speed. You do not want to have too much attack speed because this build cannot use hexing pants, or it should not use hexing pants. You can, of course, but I think that would gimp your performance. Okay, so you want cooldown reduction here. Shoulders are dex fit and Reign of Vengeance. You can, instead of the area damage, you can use cooldown reduction or cost reduction, whatever you need more. But the Reign of Vengeance damage here, that's something that you really want to have. Natalia sight, the helm, dex with crit chance, and the secondary resist, that's also very desired. The chest, it's like this, dex with Reign of Vengeance, damage from ranged attacks reduction, that's also very good, and discipline as well, so yeah, no need to roll that one for a setup like this. And yeah, the belt, that's something very important for that setup. You can run without that build. You can use, for example, the Krelm's belt for that, this one here. So you gain speed, but you lose killing power, especially against elites and the bosses, where you actually want to use that. Yeah, then I have the braces and the amulet. Both are exactly the same as in the Legacy of Nightmare setup, just as basically the shoulder, you can use the same shoulder as well. Yeah, I have physical crit in this Hellfire with archery passive, that's really cool. And physical dex with crit here, that's also very desired. These are basically the desired rolls that you want to have. Rings are focus and restraint. Both are ancient, dex and double crit. You can also use, instead of dexterity, you can use base damage, cost reduction, cooldown reduction, area damage, whatever serves you best, or whatever you just happen to have. So yeah, there's not much here. And the second weapon, of course, it's Dawn. It's always Dawn in this current meta of the Demon Hunter. You need Dawn somewhere. You can't go without Dawn. Okay, let's check for the cube. Let's go here. Cube, I have Ingeum, the Nemesis braces, and Avarice Band. Avarice Band, that's a no-brainer in Torment 10 farming. If you go for G50 or some low greater rifts for gem ups or faster loot even than Torment 10, you can swap that out for Convention of Elements, for example. You could also use the S of Johan, but I think that's not really needed, but it helps with the Crashing Rain Belt proc, because that proc has a very small area effect. So yeah, you want those monsters to be on a tight spot. The alternatives are Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, or maybe Overwhelming Desire, something like that. You have freedom of choice, basically. And yeah, for the Armor Cube, there are some options. If you play hardcore, you might want to have Pauldrons of the Skeleton King, or even better, the Beacon Sail here, this one. Because this gives you a cheat death, basically, and you want cheat deaths there. Other alternatives are the Hexing Pens. Where are they here? Hexing Pens, they give you more damage, and your resources won't be an issue anymore. You could also use the Gloves of Worship, so you have this buff all the time. And this combination, Gloves of Worship, with the Ring of Royal Grandeur here, and then you just equip the Gloves of Worship instead of Natalia's gloves. That's also something that you can use, and I think they're all basically on the same level. The Rift RNG will have a bigger impact on your clear times than what exactly you choose here. Other than that, yeah, if you want to have more and more toughness, for example, you can use the St. Archie's Gauge or String of Years. There's a lot of options. But for the weapons, there's not many options, actually. Because we're not using Fan of Knives, so the Lord Greenstone's fan is out. And all the other things here, of course, Dawn, or like you can use Calamity for a bigger damage buff. You can use the Fortress Ballista for more toughness, or as I do, you can use Ingeum for a better cooldown reduction, and this one helps with the skills that you use. So yeah, I chose this one because I have enough damage. I don't need Calamity damage. If you need the damage from Calamity, just go for it. I think that's the second best option. And other than that, yeah, of course you can put the Dawn in the cube, and then as offhand you could use a physical Holy Point Shot, that quiver with elemental damage. But that's basically it. That's it for the big choices here. And now let's go for the skills. Skills, Evasive Fire, Focus I use here. I think the better option would be to have Hardened for more toughness, but yeah, Torment 10, that's not really needed. Strafe, Drifting Shadow, because you move faster. And once again, this is just a carrier for the build. It resets the cooldown of your Reign of Vengeance. With the Natalia set, look at here, the 2-piece bonus resets the cooldown, or reduces the cooldown by 4 seconds when you hit with something. So that's what Strafe is doing mainly, and it's moving you, because your Reign of Vengeance, the Dark Cloud, it follows you around, so stuff dies. Also, oh, I didn't speak about the gems. You have Pain Enhancer, which gets distributed to the monsters with Rain of Vengeance and Strafe and Vengeance, so that works pretty well. Wrath of Lightning also because the Natalia set, it buffs the general damage, and Taeguk because you're strafing, you're using a channeling skill, so yeah, you can also make use of Mantle of Channeling. Alright, Shadow Power, Shadow Glide, Focused Mind, Preparation, Vengeance Seeth. So basically the setup, apart from moving out the Wolf here and replacing Fan of Knives with Rain of Vengeance here, it's the same as with the Legacy of Nightmare setup. I use Ambush here, I use Hot Pursuit, Blood Vengeance, Tactical Advantage, Archery in the Amulet. Yeah, there's not much choice here because all the others don't really help you in T10. So yeah, if you want to play with Strafe, if you want to have some decently fast clearing times in T10, but and you don't like multi-shot Unhallowed Essence, for example, then you can use this one before you have the full Ancient gear to use the Legacy of Nightmare setup. It's much easier to gear because it doesn't have to be Ancient. The only things that you really want to be Ancient are the weapons, of course, especially the main hand weapon, because Rain of Vengeance calculates its full damage from the main hand. So yeah, I still have weapons from the old times, like this. When Rain of Vengeance and Natalia setup was the way to go for Demon Hunters, you were using something like this, a stat stick, nothing else. And yeah, so the offhand is only important for the calculation of the damage of Pain Enhancer, and of course Vengeance here. So yeah, main hand should be the Ancient one, the strongest one that you have, and the offhand, it's not so important anymore. So, and that's the glory of that build. It can play basically as the Legacy of Nightmares setup, and it's not quite as fast, but it's still very fast, and it's much easier to gear. Hope you enjoy that, and yeah, let's jump to the next one. Hey folks, welcome back. This is the second of my guides about builds that actually work but no one really uses. And this here you can see I'm shooting bolas, and from time to time called multi-shot. So what is this? Bolas generator. Of course this is an Unhallowed Essence setup, and this is in G70 now, right now, and you see I'm even using a crossbow in the hand. This crossbow that I use there, that's the Buritsa do Kianon, if I say that right. And this weapon is a pretty strong weapon, but it should, from what it reads in the legendary effect description and from how items are designed in the current Diablo game, it should be even much stronger than it is right now. And this is because of the internal cooldown of that weapon. The weapon says that projectiles pierce the monsters up to twice. So if you have something that actually hits a monster and stops there, like the Bola, it will be able to pierce the monster after or with the Buritsa in your hand or in the cube. Unfortunately, if your attack rate is too high, it doesn't work properly anymore. And this is because once you pierce, you can even see that here with the crossbow equipped. I'm shooting, and some of those bolas are piercing and others are not. And this is because the attack rate is already too high with that setup. I should have removed attack speed from the paragons to really use that properly. So this is not good, and this is a bug, but still it works decently if you like it this way, but you can also alternatively dual wield and put the Buritsa in the cube, because even with this, it is the strongest option. You see here I'm attacking much faster. The rest of the setup is basically the same, no quiver, but a quiver is not really needed, the special Bola quiver, because it doesn't really increase the damage, it just makes it faster, but that doesn't really matter. And yeah, you can see this is much more agile, and since you have two weapons, you can have two legendary effects here. So yeah, this is actually superior to the other one, to the one where you use the Baritza. That is supposed to be, at least from what it reads, it's supposed to be the weapon to be used with skills that hit the monster and stay there, like Impale or the Bola or Hungering Arrow. But it is not, because it is too weak, and Blizzard, for 2 or 3 patches now, I have been asking Blizzard to do something about that, but they're hesitant to do anything about items like that. I don't know why. Okay, let's skip to the Rift Guardian fight. Should be around any time here. Yep. Yeah, in this setup it can clear G70 decently fast. It could be faster, as I said, without those problems, and I like it. It's like playing a Demon Hunter. Like in the old days, in the vanilla days. It's not as efficient as other setups, of course, but it's working. If you like to play like that, you can do it. And instead of you cubing the Baritza, you can cube that quiver, that Eminem's truffle, or whatever it's called, so that you will have will have instant Bola explosions. But yeah, this is G70. That's the dual wield spec that I used to clear G70. Of course, it's not the fastest time, but it's decent enough, and yeah, it's working. It's not perfect, but it's working. Okay, let's where do I have those items? Here. Okay, let's go for the setup. It's once again it's Unhallowed Essence, and Bola is a generator, and so the Unhallowed Essence set is buffing it a lot, as in other Unhallowed Essence setups. It's with the full pieces, all 6, with Vitality in the helm, of course, and cooldown in the shoulder and the gloves. Bola damage in the pants and in the accompanying belt, and yeah, here I have elemental arrow damage. I didn't want to re-roll these boots, so yeah, it stayed like that. Okay, and Bola generates a lot of discipline then, and it basically works like any other generator spec for the Demon Hunter. I'm using the Compass Rose and Traveler's Pledge combo, in this case for fire, because I used the Fire Bola. And as you can see, even though it's a generator where you would like to have maximum attack speed, I'm not using attack speed anywhere. And that is because of that weird Bola or weird Baritza stuff, which, look here, your projectiles pierce 2 additional times. And that means something like the Bola should hit the monster and then pierce the first one, pierce the second one, and then it should stop. This would actually triple the damage of the Bola, and this is a buff that the generators of the Demon Hunter would actually need to be anywhere near competitive with something like multi-shot, because the area of effect is pretty low compared to multi-shot, and so it would need those buffs. Even that belt here is not enough. And this belt, it's adding attack speed and damage. The damage is multiplicative, and that's really cool. Yeah, and so these are basically the 2 weapon options that you have. You can use the Fortress Ballista and Dawn in your hand. You can replace the Fortress Ballista with a Calamity, or replace the cubed Bola with Calamity. But yeah, this is the most relaxing setup to use. Braces are of course Wraps of Clarity. Second ring is of course Stone of Jordan. This is just the highest damage that you can get with a discipline roll in the secondary. And yeah, the alternative to the weapons is of course using the Baritza and this quiver. However, Eminem's Duffel, I call it Eminem's Truffle all the time. Anyways, this is a pretty good roll, but Bolas now explode instantly. That doesn't add damage, it just adds a little bit speed to the damage, but that's also not really true, because when you hit a monster with a Bola without that quiver, the Bola stays there until it explodes. But even when that monster dies, the Bola will explode, and you can stack the Bolas. So theoretically, you are able to, if you like, for example, theoretical option that you have 5 attacks per second, and you use that slow Bola that takes 2 seconds to go off, it is possible to stack up to 10 Bolas on one monster, and when that monster then dies, all those 10 Bolas explode at the same time. So you have 10 explosions at once. That's a pretty nice nuke, actually. But of course you don't have 5 attacks per second, you have like like 3 if you go full ham, because attack speed got nerfed after vanilla or whatever. This is just how it is. So the quiver doesn't add damage, it just adds some tiny bit of utility, but that's not really relevant because, as I said, when the monster dies, all the bolas explode and deal damage actually, so you don't lose them, as some people might think. As for the skills, it's pretty much standard for Unhallowed Essence setups. I use Bola's Imminent Doom in this case because it's the highest damage. You can choose volatile explosives for the higher explosion radius. This is actually a pretty nice area of effect buff. The other runes, Freezing Strike, it's not good, it's not an option. It's only good if you use it with the pulling Bola bow. Bitter Pill, you don't need more discipline, it's completely pointless to use that. Thunderball, you don't need more hatred, it's also completely pointless in this setup, so only the fire runes stay. Either more area of effect, that's for lower, like Torment 10 or something, you can run Torment 10 with that easily, or Imminent Doom for more damage on the spot. I use Multishot Wind Chill to apply chill to the monsters and proc Bane of the Trapped and Call the Weak. I use Vault Tumber for movement, of course, Prep Invigoration for more discipline, Vengeance Dark Heart for whatever, everything Vengeance gives us, it's just crazy. Wolf Companion, also no-brainer these days. Call the Weak, Awareness, Steady Aim, no-brainers, and Leech. Leech is, in my case, I think it's also a no-brainer because you want to heal. Whatever you do, you want to heal, and Leech is the best bet we have for that. It is possible that Ambush could be a very good option here, especially when you're able to kill a monster and then all bolas explode at the same time. I actually don't know what happens to those monsters around that one. If the damage of all those bolas that explode gets added up and deals damage with the ambush buff or without, I don't know that actually, because I didn't do any research in with the Bola, and no one else did that because, yeah, it's an unused build that works. Okay, other alternatives are like, yeah, not many actually. Thrill of the Hunt, but yeah, it's even less time for the slow and Bane of the Trap than the standard Wind Chill, so you don't need that. And yeah, basically that is it. That's it about that build. Let's go quickly to the cube, because in this case I have the Buritsa cubed. If I use the Buritsa and the Quiver, I cube Dawn, of course. Depth Diggers, no-brainer. Convention of Elements, basically also no-brainer. That is how you go. You can, of course, rotate a bit the gear. Like if you have a perfect Andariel's Visage but you do not have a good Stone of Jordan, you can put in, like perfect Andariel's Visage would be with Dexterity, Attack Speed, Crit Chance, and the fire damage. Yeah, actually you can't have that. You would have to remove Dexterity, I think. Attack Speed, Fire Damage, Crit Chance, and the Socket. Which would be more damage, of course, than that, so you can put a Ring of Royal Grandeur here, but yeah, if you should use the Stone of Jordan, I think. Okay, and yeah, you need Depth Diggers. If you want to replace them with anything, you can replace this with Mage Fist, and then use the Ring of Royal Grandeur somewhere. Mage Fist here, 20% fire. Ring of Royal Grandeur, and actually use Depth Diggers. Yeah, but this is the optimal combination that you can have here. Remember, if you replace the Fortress Ballista with Calamity, you get more damage, but you also lose safety. It's up to you and up to what you need and what you want to do. 20% more damage from Calamity is not bad actually. But yeah, that's about it. That build works. It's a nice distraction from the other setups that we have. It's not as efficient, but it works. It really works. If you want to just play and have fun, this might be a build for you. Hope you enjoyed it, and maybe you want to watch one of the other guides. Bye. So this is the third of my guides about setups that actually work but no one is really using, and this is the Unhallowed Essence setup with a generator or basically a spend a turn generator because of the weapon, the Crider shot, and this is with Frost Arrow. I've tried most of the other elemental arrows as well, but Frost Arrow for solo play, it's definitely the strongest in that setup, because it's slowing, it's chilling stuff automatically, so you always have Bane of the Trapped and the Cull the Weak passive active without wasting something for it. And also it's not depending on the mobs to stay on one spot like Immolation Arrow is. And as you can see, I cleared 82 with that. That was the first try actually. The gear is not augmented, and it was a bad Rift with a not so good Rift Guardian for that setup. So it works pretty well. And you can also do G70 clears, as you can see here, in a pretty good time, as you can see here in the progress. That's a cave map with the decent mobs, but not that good actually. And you can see me vaulting around all the time. I'm basically never moving. Sometimes I'm moving and walking with the feet, but just to walk into the circle of the Oculus ring, for example, or to pick up globes. But most of the time I'm just vaulting around, because if you look at the blue discipline globe part, it almost never drops, and when it drops it instantly gets refilled, because Frost Arrow, Elemental Arrow with Crider Shot, is considered as a generator in the Unhallowed Essence set. That means it recovers discipline and a lot of hatred actually. So this is strong. This is very, very strong. And you can see the Rift Guardian dying here. Okay, this is Cold Convention of Elements, but it's not like cheating or anything. So this is a very, very strong setup, and I will explain it to you right now. Let's close this up here. And here, this is the character I have with that setup right on right now. You can see the damage that I have in this gear is pretty high. It's 3.6 million, even though the gear, other than the shoulders, is not augmented, but it's still decently high. I almost cleared 85 2 or 3 times. I didn't try it very often, so clearing 85 with augmented gear should be possible even for much lower Paragon players. And so let's go for the setup. That's here, the Unhallowed Essence. We all know this from the multi-shot setups that we all use all the time. Well, I don't, because I'm not a big fan of that, but yeah, anyways. Here, the set, it says that like your generators generate 2 additional hatred and 1 discipline, and you gain damage for discipline, and the generators in multi-shot and vengeance deal increased damage for the discipline. Okay, so Elemental Arrow usually is not a generator, but with this weapon, with Crider Shot, it is a generator. Elemental Arrow now generates free hatred. That is pretty cool. And just for those who still have that question in their heads, Night Stalker, your primary skills generate hatred, additional hatred, and not your generators. So it doesn't work with Elemental Arrow and Crider Shot. So yeah, and the accompanying quiver, new in this patch 2.4.1, is the Augustine's Panacea, or however you spell that. And this is a non-ancient one, but it has decent rolls on it. So this is desired, and this combination, those two with the Unhallowed Essence set, they are the ones making that build. On the gear, boots, Elemental Arrow bonus, plate, pants, dex, wit, all-res, and socket, of course, no-brainer. Same here, dex, wit, all-res. Could opt for, if you have something like with plus discipline and physical resistance in the secondaries, you can use for example elite damage reduction or plus life instead of all resistance here. The gloves look like this. These are pretty cool ones, because look at the secondary ones. It's cold resistance, not that good, but okay, and chance to stun very high. That's really, really cool. And attack speed on them. Crit chance, crit damage, attack speed. You do not have to take care of your resources. You can go full ham on attack speed. You don't have to take care of the other things. Shoulders with cooldown. Best rolls would actually be dex, wit, area damage and cooldown reduction, and then some physical resistance in the secondaries if you can get that, but it's pretty rare to have. Helm, dex, crit, and elemental arrow damage. Braces, no-brainer. Wraps of clarity, there's no way around them. And now for the belt, I do have this this insanely good witching hour here. You do not have to use the witching hour, you can use other things. You can use what are the options? There are some options actually, but witching hour is clearly the strongest. The Hunter's Wrath does not work with this combination, unfortunately. If it would work, it would be insane. It would be really, really cool. We would get more toughness and a lot more damage, but alas, it doesn't work. Okay, but what are the options? Since it's cold, we do not have something like Thunder God's Vigor, but the Court of the Sure here. If you play hardcore, for example, this is a very nice option because this procs a lot. Yeah, you can use the cooldown belt if you need cooldown, or a string of ears if you want to have some more toughness. But DPS wise, witching hour, that's the way to go. There's no way around it. Now, rings and amulets. This is something to debate. You have the I have the Compass Rose, a very good one, and a very good Traveler's Pledge here, accompanied by a Stone of Jordan, which is, this combination is, in my opinion, this is the strongest setup that you can run, because you can get more toughness if you walk around. You get your buffs from the Traveler set, and if you stand still, you get the damage buff, so you can either have toughness or damage depending on what you need, basically. And the Stone of Jordan, it adds a lot of damage because it's got, in this case, it's got cold damage increase, elite damage increase. You want elite damage, and it's got discipline, and as you remember, we get damage from discipline. That's true for all the other Unhallowed Essence sets as well, that the Stone of Jordan is a very, very strong option. But in this case here, since we're using Frost Arrow as generator, we're generating our discipline extremely fast. In those speedy runs, like in G70, I'm using Tumble, but you have enough discipline that you can also use the Rattling Roll, which makes your life a lot safer. Alright, that's the gear stuff. Let's go to the cube. Let's just deactivate this. Here, let's go to the cube. I have Dawn in the cube, of course. Once again, Dawn everywhere. Dawn, there's no alternative because Vengeance is just so strong. I have cubed Frostburn because they give me more damage and at the same time more crowd control with Freeze. You're constantly shooting cold stuff and you're constantly freezing. So that means your life is safer and you deal more damage. But there are some alternatives. Convention of Elements, of course, for damage. But let's talk about the alternatives, especially for hardcore players. As you remember, we're shooting with the generator all the time. We don't even need the multi-shot for anything other than it's proccing an increased crit chance. So we always have full hatred, or almost always. And this means we can go for the Acula Cuirass, doubling our toughness. No brainer. If you want toughness, you use this and you're fine to go. Double toughness compared to 20% more cold damage when you already have 50 to 60%. Yeah, depends on what you need, but it's a very, very good option. Alternatives to that, I don't think there's any that is really worth anything, because yeah, you can use some cheat death of the Back and Sail, but I think Acula Cuirass and Frostburn are the ones fighting over that slot. I chose Frostburn because in G70 and even up to G80 I'm pretty safe and I usually don't die because I have the cheat death passive as well. And in the ring slot we have the alternatives like Elusive Ring. We're vaulting all the time, so we have that buff up all the time. So look at the toughness, currently it's 39.5 million. If I go for the Acula Cuirass in the chest and that ring, and remember I have Vengeance, pop this, jump around, 400 million toughness. This is almost immortal in this life, or at least in what I'm doing with this. But this is not the way I go. I go with Frostburn and Convention of Elements, because when you play properly as a Demon Hunter, and this is how a Demon Hunter should play, You will not proc your passive. Okay, for the skills, Frost Arrow. Of course, it's Frost Arrow. The alternatives are not that good. Ball Lightning, yeah, you can use Ball Lightning as well, Lightning, but it's traveling so slow. It's not good if you want to have speed, and it's very hard to hit stuff with that. So I don't think that's a good option. Immolation Arrow, that's a very, very strong rune as well, but it's only really strong when something is standing in the patch that... Oh, there's nothing to hit here. And something is standing in the patch of fire that sits there when it explodes. And then it's doing a lot of damage. But it's not good for solo. Frost Arrow is much better. Lightning Bolts, if you want to stun stuff all the time and then reduce your crowd control effect all the time. Yeah, it's not a good option. This rune makes no sense. Nether Tentacles for more healing. Yeah, not a good option, I think. I mean, it's traveling through the monsters, it's doing decent damage, but I don't think it's a good option. Frost Arrow is just superior. It's for solo, it's the best one. Then Multi-Shot Wind Chill. I'm using this because it gives 15% crit chance increase. You can run the same setup with Focus and Restraint here, and then use a Hellfire Amulet. But yeah, I think it's not the strongest DPS that you can have, so I use Wind Chill for the crit chance. There is an alternative actually, and it's Caltrops Bait the Trap. It's less crit chance increase, but if you use that, you place it, and then you shoot, and it takes a long time before the passive, the inactive trap, disappears. Only when it's active it takes 6 seconds to disappear. But then it's slowing the monsters as well, and you will never have to shoot multi-shot because and Elemental Arrow does all the damage here. So this is a viable option. I tried that, it works, it's basically the same, but yeah. I'm pretty used to activating a second attack every now and then, so I go with this. Yeah. Then Volt Tumble, as I said, you can use Rattling Roll for more safety because you have enough discipline. Preparation, Invigoration, no-brainer for Unhallowed Essence. Vengeance, Dark Heart. Compare that to the fire multi-shot setup that others are using for higher rifts. It's the one with toughness, so you get the toughness just for free basically. Companion Wolf, also very strong. We always have to use that now since the patch. Then the passives, I have Call the Weak, Leech, Awareness, and Steady Aim. Leech, never ever underestimate that, it's so strong. And I have Awareness because Ambush is giving me some damage, but not enough. It's not really worth it. Okay, so Leech, don't underestimate that. Heal amount is increased by 75% of your life per kill. If you go out there and have life per kill on the belt and on the pants and on the rings, if you happen to get some, I don't have it on the rings, you will have a very, very nice amount of life per hit. Right now, without having this on the rings, I do have 37,000 life per hit. And that's really cool, because the attack speed is also pretty high, 2.2, and it's getting even higher. Look at the gems, didn't talk about them. Bane of the Trapped, of course, no-brainer. Zay, Stone of Vengeance, also a no-brainer for a setup like that. And Gogok of Swiftness. I do not use Bane of the Stricken because I don't really need it. Gogok, it's adding attack speed and cooldown and dodge chance, so it's toughness and damage. Attack speed is pure damage in that setup, and cooldown reduction is also pure damage because this gem here, it replaces 2 cooldown rolls on my gear, so I only have cooldown on the shoulders and on the helm in the gem, and that's it, nowhere else. So I can use 2 of those rolls for attack speed or area damage or elemental arrow damage, like this one here. If I wouldn't use that, I would have to go and use other items, like use gloves with cooldown reduction. So that's a very strong option. You can use Stricken if you want, but I do not recommend that because you cannot get easily cooldown on the rings, for example, in that setup. So yeah, this is really strong. That's the way to go. Okay, and this, I think, and in my experience, this setup here has the same power as the multi-shot setup. It plays a bit different, and it's much tougher, so you do not have to fish for monsters like you have with multi-shot, and it's got a lot, really a lot of damage. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe you want to see some of the other guides for unused builds that are really cool. Bye.